In this fictional rap drama story, the tension had already reached a dangerous level the moment 50 Cent walked into the room and saw T.I. standing across from him. The air felt heavy, and everyone in the room knew something serious was about to happen. 50 Cent stared directly at T.I. with a cold look that made the entire place silent. None of 50 Cent's friends spoke at first, but they stood behind 50 Cent like a wall. T.I. tried to keep his composure, but even he could feel that 50 Cent and his friends were not here to talk calmly. The long-running tension between 50 Cent and T.I. had been building for months, and now it looked like it was about to explode. 50 Cent stepped closer to T.I. and started talking in a slow but sharp voice. 50 Cent reminded T.I. about every disrespectful moment that had happened between them in the past. 50 Cent mentioned the interviews, the social media posts, and the comments that T.I. had made. T.I. tried to respond and explain himself, but 50 Cent was not interested in hearing excuses. The friends standing behind 50 Cent began murmuring, repeating 50 Cent's words and making the atmosphere even more tense. T.I. looked around the room and realized he was outnumbered, but he still tried to stand strong. As the argument continued, voices grew louder and emotions grew hotter. 50 Cent suddenly stepped forward and pushed T.I. back slightly. One of 50 Cent's friends shouted that T.I. had been disrespecting 50 Cent for too long. Another friend of 50 Cent stepped closer and warned T.I. that the situation was getting serious. T.I. raised his hands slightly, trying to calm things down, but the anger inside the room was already boiling. The argument quickly turned physical, and a loud slap echoed through the room as one of 50 Cent's friends struck T.I. across the face. The room exploded with shouting. T.I. tried to fight back, but 50 Cent's friends surrounded him. 50 Cent stood right in front of T.I., watching closely while his friends continued confronting him. Every moment felt chaotic, and the tension only grew worse. T.I. shouted back at 50 Cent, accusing 50 Cent of setting him up and trying to humiliate him. 50 Cent responded with harsh words, telling T.I. that respect in the rap world had to be earned and protected. According to 50 Cent, T.I. had crossed the line too many times. Meanwhile, far away from that room, King Harris had just started hearing rumors about what was happening. King Harris was scrolling through his phone when messages began appearing from different people in the industry. Some of them were warning King Harris that his father T.I. was in a serious confrontation with 50 Cent. At first, King Harris thought the messages were exaggerated, because rap industry drama often gets blown out of proportion. But as more messages came in, King Harris realized the situation might actually be real. Back in the room, the confrontation between 50 Cent and T.I. continued to escalate. T.I. was furious now, shouting at 50 Cent and demanding that everyone step back. 50 Cent's friends continued surrounding T.I., making it clear that they were controlling the situation. 50 Cent leaned closer to T.I. and spoke again in a low voice that everyone could still hear. 50 Cent said that respect had rules and that T.I. had forgotten those rules. T.I. answered back angrily, saying that 50 Cent was trying to embarrass him instead of handling the conflict like a real man. The shouting grew louder. One of 50 Cent's friends grabbed T.I. by the shoulder, while another continued yelling insults. T.I. tried to shake them off, but the pressure from multiple people made it difficult. 50 Cent remained in front of T.I., watching everything carefully, as if he wanted T.I. to understand that he was in control of the moment. The entire confrontation felt like a storm that had been building for years, and was now finally breaking loose. At the same time, King Harris finally received a direct phone call from someone who had witnessed part of the situation. The voice on the phone sounded nervous and rushed. The person told King Harris that things had gotten ugly between 50 Cent and T.I., and that T.I. had been surrounded by several of 50 Cent's friends. Hearing this immediately changed King Harris's mood. King Harris jumped to his feet, his anger rising quickly. King Harris could not believe that his father T.I. was being treated like that. King Harris began pacing back and forth while still on the phone. The more details he heard, the angrier King Harris became. King Harris shouted that nobody had the right to disrespect T.I. like that. The person on the phone warned King Harris that the situation was still unfolding and that it might get even worse. That warning only made King Harris more furious. King Harris ended the call abruptly and slammed his phone down on the table. Back in the confrontation room, 50 Cent and T.I. were still locked in a heated argument. T.I. continued demanding that everyone back away so he could speak directly to 50 Cent. 50 Cent finally raised his hand, signaling his friends to quiet down for a moment. The room became slightly calmer, but the tension was still extremely strong. 50 Cent looked directly into T.I.'s eyes and told him that every action has consequences. At that exact moment, King Harris grabbed his jacket and stormed out of the building where he had been sitting. King Harris was filled with anger and determination. King Harris kept repeating his father's name, T.I., under his breath as he rushed toward his car. King Harris knew that if the rumors were true, then this situation between 50 Cent and T.I. was far from over. In fact, for King Harris, the real confrontation was only just beginning. And as the night grew darker, the anger of King Harris, the pride of T.I., and the ruthless confidence of 50 Cent were all moving toward a collision that nobody could stop. Part 2 of the story would reveal what happened when King Harris finally stepped into the conflict between 50 Cent and T.I., and how the rap world reacted when the drama escalated even further. The moment King Harris ended the phone call, the anger inside him felt like a fire that refused to calm down. King Harris could not stop thinking about what he had just heard about his father T.I. and the confrontation with 50 Cent. Every step King Harris took toward his car felt heavier than the last. In King Harris's mind, one thought kept repeating again and again. Nobody humiliates T.I. and walks away like nothing happened. King Harris jumped into his car and slammed the door hard, his jaw tight with rage as he started the engine. While King Harris was speeding through the streets, the situation between 50 Cent and T.I. was still boiling inside that room. T.I. had wiped the anger off his face, but the humiliation still burned inside him. 50 Cent stood only a few feet away, watching T.I. closely. The friends of 50 Cent were still surrounding T.I., whispering among themselves and laughing at the chaos that had just unfolded. T.I. clenched his fists as he stared directly at 50 Cent. T.I. was furious, but he also understood that reacting blindly could make the situation even worse. 50 Cent slowly walked around T.I. like he was studying him. The silence in the room felt dangerous. Finally, 50 Cent spoke again, his voice calm but full of cold confidence. 50 Cent told T.I. that the rap game had always been about respect, and according to 50 Cent, T.I. had forgotten that rule. T.I. quickly fired back, saying that 50 Cent was hiding behind a group of friends instead of handling the issue one-on-one. The words from T.I. immediately made some of 50 Cent's friends step forward again, angry at the challenge. One of 50 Cent's friends shoved T.I. slightly, warning him not to talk too much. T.I. pushed the hand away and shouted that he was not afraid of any of them. The room once again filled with shouting. 50 Cent raised his hand again to quiet everyone down. The expression on 50 Cent's face showed that he was enjoying the psychological pressure more than the physical confrontation. For 50 Cent, watching T.I. struggle under that pressure seemed to be part of the message he wanted to send. Meanwhile, King Harris was driving faster and faster. His phone kept buzzing with new messages. Some people were sending King Harris rumors, while others were telling King Harris to stay calm and avoid making the situation worse. But King Harris was not interested in calm advice at that moment. King Harris felt that his father T.I. had been disrespected publicly, and that kind of disrespect could not be ignored. King Harris gripped the steering wheel tightly and muttered that 50 Cent would have to answer for what happened. Back inside the room, T.I. was still arguing with 50 Cent. T.I. kept repeating that 50 Cent had crossed the line. 50 Cent laughed slightly and reminded T.I. that the music industry had always been brutal. According to 50 Cent, people who talk big have to be ready for consequences. The words from 50 Cent only made T.I. angrier. T.I. stepped closer and pointed directly at 50 Cent, warning him that the situation would not end here. Some of 50 Cent's friends began mocking T.I., clapping and laughing sarcastically. One of them said that T.I. should think carefully before making threats. Another friend of 50 Cent repeated that 50 Cent had already shown who was in control tonight. T.I. looked around the room again, realizing that the environment was completely against him. But instead of backing down, T.I. straightened his posture and stared directly at 50 Cent again. At that same moment, King Harris was getting closer to the location where the confrontation had taken place. The anger inside King Harris had not cooled at all. In fact, every minute that passed made King Harris imagine the humiliation his father T.I. might have experienced. King Harris slammed his hand against the steering wheel and said loudly that nobody humiliates T.I. without consequences. For King Harris, this was no longer just rap drama. This had become personal. Back in the room, 50 Cent finally stepped closer to T.I. again. The two men stood face to face with only inches between them. The rest of 50 Cent's friends stepped back slightly, watching the moment carefully. The silence returned once again. T.I. looked tired but still determined, while 50 Cent looked calm and completely in control. 50 Cent leaned slightly toward T.I. and told him that the rap world was watching everything that happened tonight. T.I. responded by saying that the world would also see how 50 Cent handled this situation. T.I. told 50 Cent that humiliating someone might bring temporary attention, but it would also create enemies that never forget. 50 Cent smiled faintly at those words, as if he had heard threats like that many times before. Outside the building, King Harris finally arrived. King Harris parked the car quickly and stepped out with anger still burning in his eyes. King Harris looked at the entrance of the building and clenched his fists. Inside that building were the people who had disrespected his father T.I. King Harris walked toward the door without hesitation. Inside the room, the tension between 50 Cent and T.I. was reaching another dangerous moment. Neither man looked ready to back down. The argument had already gone too far for simple words to fix anything. Just as 50 Cent was about to say something else, the door of the building suddenly opened loudly. King Harris had arrived. King Harris stepped inside with fury written all over his face. His eyes immediately locked onto 50 Cent and the group surrounding T.I. The atmosphere in the room instantly changed. Everyone realized that the situation had just become much more serious. King Harris walked directly toward his father T.I., ignoring everyone else for a moment. When King Harris reached T.I., he asked one simple but intense question: "Who touched you?" T.I. looked at King Harris and knew that things were about to explode again. Across the room, 50 Cent watched the arrival of King Harris with a calm expression, but the people standing behind 50 Cent began whispering again. Everyone understood that the conflict was far from finished. And as King Harris slowly turned his head toward 50 Cent, the next stage of this explosive confrontation was about to begin. The moment King Harris stepped fully into the room, the entire atmosphere changed. Everyone who had been shouting only seconds earlier suddenly became quiet. King Harris's eyes moved across the room until they stopped on 50 Cent. The anger on King Harris's face was impossible to ignore. T.I. stood beside King Harris, breathing heavily after everything that had already happened. For a moment, father and son looked at each other without speaking, and King Harris could see that T.I. had clearly been through a humiliating confrontation. King Harris clenched his fists and slowly stepped forward, placing himself slightly in front of T.I., as if protecting him. King Harris's voice came out low but full of rage as he repeated the same question again. King Harris demanded to know who had touched T.I. and who thought it was funny to disrespect his father. The people standing behind 50 Cent exchanged nervous looks, but 50 Cent himself remained calm. 50 Cent leaned slightly against a table and stared directly at King Harris. 50 Cent then spoke in a relaxed tone that only made the situation more intense. 50 Cent said that nobody needed to answer King Harris because King Harris had just arrived late to a situation he didn't understand. The words from 50 Cent immediately triggered King Harris's temper. King Harris took another step forward and pointed directly at 50 Cent. King Harris shouted that he didn't care about the details because disrespect was disrespect. According to King Harris, nobody had the right to surround T.I. like that. T.I. tried to place a hand on King Harris's shoulder, quietly telling King Harris to slow down. T.I. understood that the situation could turn even worse if King Harris completely lost control. But King Harris was already too angry to think calmly. King Harris looked back at T.I. and said that he could not stand by while his father was humiliated. Hearing those words made the tension in the room grow even thicker. One of the friends standing behind 50 Cent laughed loudly, mocking King Harris's anger. That laugh immediately caught King Harris's attention. King Harris turned his head sharply toward the man and told him to keep quiet if he didn't want the situation to turn ugly. Several of 50 Cent's friends began murmuring again, and the room started to fill with hostile energy. 50 Cent pushed himself off the table and slowly stepped closer. Now 50 Cent, T.I., and King Harris were standing only a few feet apart. 50 Cent looked at King Harris with a calm but slightly amused expression. 50 Cent told King Harris that the rap world was not a place for emotional reactions. According to 50 Cent, people who step into industry conflicts need to understand the consequences first. King Harris shook his head angrily and replied that 50 Cent was acting tough because he had a group of people behind him. King Harris said that if 50 Cent really wanted respect, he should deal with things directly instead of surrounding T.I. with friends. The words from King Harris caused several of 50 Cent's friends to step forward again, clearly offended by the accusation. The tension exploded again when one of the men suddenly shouted back at King Harris. The argument turned into a loud exchange of insults. T.I. tried again to calm his son, but King Harris continued shouting. The shouting quickly turned into pushing as someone bumped into King Harris during the chaos. King Harris immediately pushed back. For a few seconds, the entire room became a mess of movement and yelling. People were trying to hold each other back, while others were arguing face to face. 50 Cent raised his voice loudly, telling everyone to stop. Surprisingly, the room slowly became quiet again after hearing 50 Cent shout. 50 Cent looked around the room, clearly irritated that the situation had gotten out of control again. Then 50 Cent turned his attention back to King Harris. 50 Cent said that King Harris was letting his anger blind him. According to 50 Cent, the confrontation with T.I. had started long before King Harris even heard about it. But King Harris responded that none of that mattered anymore. King Harris told 50 Cent that once family becomes part of the situation, everything changes. The room became silent again as everyone watched the intense stare between King Harris and 50 Cent. T.I. stood slightly behind King Harris now, realizing that his son was refusing to back down. Outside the building, a few people had already started noticing that something serious was happening inside. Word travels fast in the entertainment world, and rumors about the confrontation between 50 Cent and T.I. had already begun spreading online. Some people were posting messages saying that King Harris had arrived and that the situation might turn violent again. Back inside the room, 50 Cent crossed his arms and looked directly at King Harris. 50 Cent said that anger might feel powerful in the moment, but it often leads people into mistakes. King Harris replied immediately that letting disrespect slide would be an even bigger mistake. T.I. finally stepped forward again, placing himself between King Harris and 50 Cent. T.I. said that the situation had already gone far enough. T.I. admitted that the night had become ugly, but continuing the confrontation could make things even worse. King Harris looked at T.I. with disbelief, clearly not expecting his father to try to calm things down. 50 Cent watched the interaction between father and son carefully. For a moment, nobody spoke. The tension in the room felt like a ticking clock ready to explode again at any second. King Harris finally looked back at 50 Cent and said that this situation was not finished. King Harris warned that respect would be settled sooner or later. 50 Cent did not respond immediately. Instead, 50 Cent simply stared back with a cold expression that made it impossible to guess what he was thinking. The silence lasted several seconds before 50 Cent finally spoke again. 50 Cent said that sometimes the biggest wars in the rap world don't end in a single night. According to 50 Cent, tonight might only be the beginning of something much bigger. Those words hung heavily in the air as everyone in the room realized that the conflict between 50 Cent, T.I., and King Harris had now crossed a line that could not easily be erased. And with anger still burning inside King Harris, pride still weighing on T.I., and the calculated confidence of 50 Cent controlling the room, the story was moving toward an even more explosive final chapter. Part 4 would reveal how the aftermath of this confrontation spread across the industry and what shocking consequences followed for everyone involved. The silence inside the room lasted for several seconds after the last words were spoken. Everyone present could feel that the situation had already gone far beyond a simple argument. 50 Cent stood there with a cold expression, watching both T.I. and King Harris carefully. The tension between them was thick, and nobody seemed ready to move first. What had started as a confrontation had now turned into something much bigger, something that could spread far beyond that room. King Harris was still breathing heavily, his anger far from gone. He looked directly at 50 Cent with eyes full of frustration and rage. King Harris felt that his father T.I. had been disrespected in front of a group of people, and that kind of humiliation was something he could not accept easily. T.I., however, seemed to be thinking more carefully now. T.I. understood that things had already escalated too far, and if the confrontation continued, the consequences could become much worse for everyone involved. 50 Cent slowly walked a few steps closer again. The room remained quiet except for the sound of people shifting their feet nervously. Some of 50 Cent's friends were still whispering among themselves, clearly enjoying the tension that had filled the room. But 50 Cent himself looked calm and controlled, almost like he had already expected the situation to reach this level. T.I. finally spoke again, his voice lower than before, but still serious. T.I. said that tonight had already gone too far, and that continuing this fight would only make things worse for everyone. King Harris looked at T.I. with surprise. King Harris had arrived ready for a full confrontation, but now his father seemed more interested in ending the chaos before it exploded again. King Harris shook his head and said that disrespect could not simply be ignored. King Harris repeated that people had surrounded T.I. and treated him unfairly. Hearing those words made several of 50 Cent's friends react again, some laughing while others shook their heads as if they disagreed with King Harris's version of events. 50 Cent raised his hand slightly, signaling his friends to stay quiet again. Then 50 Cent looked directly at King Harris and spoke in a calm but firm voice. 50 Cent said that the music industry had always been full of conflict and competition. According to 50 Cent, people who step into that world must be ready to face uncomfortable situations. King Harris immediately replied that competition was one thing, but humiliating someone's family was something completely different. For a moment, the room returned to silence again. Everyone present knew that the emotions between these three figures were still burning under the surface. T.I. placed a hand on King Harris's shoulder once more, trying to calm his son down. T.I. quietly told King Harris that reacting with more anger would only make the situation worse. King Harris looked frustrated, but he respected his father enough to pause. Across the room, 50 Cent watched the exchange between father and son. There was a small smirk on his face, but his eyes remained serious. 50 Cent then said that tonight had already proven something important. According to 50 Cent, pride and reputation can push people into situations that spiral out of control very quickly. Outside the building, rumors about what had happened were already spreading rapidly across the entertainment world. People on social media were discussing the confrontation, sharing different versions of the story. Some posts claimed that the argument between 50 Cent and T.I. had nearly turned into a full fight, while others mentioned the moment King Harris arrived and how the atmosphere inside the room changed immediately. Back inside, T.I. finally stepped forward and addressed everyone present. T.I. admitted that emotions had taken over the night. T.I. said that arguments like this were not new in the music world, but sometimes things go too far when pride becomes more important than logic. T.I. then looked directly at 50 Cent and said that whatever disagreements existed between them should not drag their families deeper into the conflict. 50 Cent listened without interrupting. When T.I. finished speaking, 50 Cent nodded slightly. 50 Cent said that disagreements between artists have always existed, and they often create headlines and attention. But 50 Cent also admitted that when family becomes involved, the situation becomes more complicated. King Harris was still standing with his arms crossed, clearly unhappy with how the night had unfolded. King Harris looked at both men and said that respect would still need to be addressed sooner or later. Even though King Harris had calmed slightly, the anger inside him had not disappeared completely. Several minutes passed as the tension slowly began to settle. People in the room started moving again, talking quietly among themselves. The explosive energy that had filled the space earlier was slowly fading, replaced by a heavy silence and the realization that the night would likely become a major topic of conversation across the industry. Finally, T.I. turned toward the exit, signaling that he was ready to leave. King Harris followed closely beside him. Before walking out, T.I. looked back once more at 50 Cent. There was still tension between them, but it was clear that continuing the confrontation that night would not solve anything. 50 Cent remained standing in the room, watching as T.I. and King Harris walked away. Some of his friends began talking again, replaying the events that had just happened. 50 Cent simply shook his head slightly and said that in the entertainment world, moments like this often turn into stories that people talk about for years. Outside, the night air felt colder as T.I. and King Harris stepped into the parking lot. King Harris still looked upset, But T.I. reminded him that sometimes the smartest move is walking away before things become irreversible. Even though the confrontation had ended for the night, everyone involved knew that the story was far from over. The conflict between 50 Cent, T.I., and King Harris had now become part of a much larger narrative in the entertainment world. Rumors, opinions, and reactions would continue spreading everywhere. And as the lights of the building faded behind them, one thing remained clear: pride, reputation, and family loyalty had collided in a way that guaranteed this story would not be forgotten anytime soon. If you enjoyed this intense story about 50 Cent, T.I., and King Harris, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss the next explosive update. The drama in the rap world never stops, and there are always new stories, new rivalries, and shocking moments unfolding behind the scenes. Drop a comment below and tell us what you think about this situation between 50 Cent, T.I., and King Harris. Whose side are you on, and what do you think will happen next? Don't forget to like the video and share it with your friends so they can join the conversation too. Stay tuned because the next story might be even more shocking than this one.